Hi, my name is Rafael Villanueva, and in this video, I'm going to talk about my topic, renewable energy, and what I found about it, and what and how I did it. In the first place, I choose this topic for three reasons. In the first one, it is because it is an actual important problem that concerns all of us, and that we have to try to fix it. Secondly, because I would like to work in this field after I graduate here in URI. And in the third place, because there was a lot of information about it. I found the database in KO. I just went to, I'm going to solve my data-driven questions. My data-driven questions are these five. Is the use of renewable energy increasing with time? Which is the most renewable energy in the world and per continent? Which are the five countries that consume more renewable energies and the five list? Unfortunately, I couldn't answer the fourth one because the data set didn't have information about fossil fuels and only about renewable energies. So this one right here, I couldn't answer it. So I just answered the other four. And the last one, which are the five countries that generate more electricity with renewable energy? These two are closely related. My original data collection page, there are two main things that we can explore. One, the survey, this survey with the data gathered from it. You can see here the data gathered, and also with some charts and some screenshots from Google Trends containing information with the topic, about the topic. The survey has 7 questions. I formulated to see what were the thoughts of people who I know about the topic and see if people are more or less informed about the topic. I asked almost the same questions as my data-driven questions. As you can see here, they're almost the same. And apparently, the respondents were only aware about the problem in general. I'm saying this, for example, when they were asked, is the use of renewable energy increasing with time? Almost all of the respondents, they knew that they were answered between 5 and 7 that the renewable energy is increasing, and also they knew that we need to use more renewable energy. Other than that, when they were asked about more specific questions about types of renewable energy, which one was the most used, they didn't match their answer with the real information. Actually, they only said that 50% of the hydroelectric energy was the total of the. In this chart, in the Google Trends, the blue line represents renewable energy, the yellow fossil fuels, and the red energy consumption. The trend was filtered with the field of science. The lines go up and down almost equally, with a more pronounced down around December of every year. All these could be related to the fact that people usually know usually look for information about renewable energy with a higher frequency. So, we can see here that renewable energy, the blue line, is the most looked search. And but when they were researching about renewable energy information, they find that there were other terms and they had to look them up at the same time. So probably that's the reason that why the lines follow almost the same path. And finally, I found that there was a peak of research of news, because this trend, it was filtered with the field of news. Sorry, this is in Spanish, but it means Google News. And around 2007 and 2008, there was a peak here, as you can see, and it was because all the world started to question about climate change. Looking into the gathered data from the survey here, I found two constraints, two data type constraints and a range constraint. Also, there was a mandatory constraint. There was an empty gap in one of the questions, and so I deleted the whole row from the Excel. These were the only constraints found, and the line with the age here, 26, I just changed the age with letters for the appropriate number, with the other one with this line, with this row containing these two constraints, these two errors. What I did is just delete the whole row, and because I couldn't correct the age here, or the fourth question, which are the 5 countries that consume the most renewable energy. So that's what I did. Okay, let's go with the visualizations. The images I found online are from a reliable website called Our World in Data. It is not only a website about renewable energy. This website has thousands of topics. I got the charts that you can see here, these charts from the website, since there were a lot of charts to answer all my data driving questions. I'm going to briefly explain each chart and how they are related to the questions. For the first question, which is the use of renewable energy increasing with time? We can see in this chart that the growth of renewables was increasing linearly. This one. That the renewable energy was increasing linearly, as you can see here, until 2000, where the renewable energy started to grow exponentially, with a huge increase on the solar and the wind energy, as you can see here. Solar and wind, in the last years, they have grown a lot. Also, it has to be mentioned that, as we said before in the Google Trends, as the renewable energy started to grow here in 2000, the searches also increased during that time, explaining like this, the peak around 2007 that we saw in the Google Trends. For the second question, we can also use this chart. The second question was which is the renewable energy most used in the world, and as you can see, I think it's obvious which one is the one that it was most used, and it's most used, of course, is hydropower. And per continent, if we scroll down to the bottom of the website, we can see that for hydropower, North America is leading the competition. For solar energy, Asia is ahead, and Europe is the first one when we are talking about wind energy. Also, I want to mention that here in this chart that I used from my dataset, you can see that okay, yellow is nuclear energy, red is renewable energy, and blue is fossil fuel energy. As you can see, it has been a slightly growth in the renewable energies in the last years, but it's still very, very little compared with the fossil fuels energy. Analysis program is a program that collects and uses functions and code from other programs to create a final program, which shows different options. You can see here when we run the program. Here you can see different options, and to show information, statistics, and charts about the topic and the research itself. And there are different Python elements, and there are variables which contain information from the dataset. As for example, here we can see variables that are like from the dataset, or also we can see information here, some lists that are containing information from the dataset. And other were used inside needed loops or functions, for example, also here. And other were empty variables and were fulfilled by a function when they were needed. As for example, I think this function, there are empty variables where were fulfilled by this loop. Inside of all the functions, the program calls when it's run conditional statements, loops, lists, dictionaries, or data frames. There are so many different functions, and some of them they use lists, they use loops, as we can see here. Almost all the functions that are called in the main program here. Here, these ones that you can see here, DQ, basic stats, simple visualization, all of them they use loops to call different options inside of the function. The functions were taken from other programs and modified to be called in the main program. As I said before, here these functions use other functions, this one, also this one. They use different functions from other programs. And the functions have sometimes no arguments, and sometimes they can, as here, sometimes they don't have arguments, but sometimes they can have 2 arguments or even 3 if it is needed. And the good thing about having all these functions from other programs is that they can be called inside other new functions, and then these new functions are called in the main function, as I've been saying all this time. All these functions with CVS were from other programs that are used in, for example, here in another function inside of it, and then those ones, for example, this one, they are called in the main function here, findings. I'm going to try to be clear and simple with the findings, because I think that when too much information is given, the audience tends to forget most of it. So for my first question, what I found was that since 1965, the use of renewable energy has increased. As we can see in the chart that I showed before, um, and in the last 15 years, it has grown exponentially. For the second question, the hydropower is the most used renewable energy, as you can see here, and North America is the one that generates it the most. Asia produces more solar energy, and Europe leads the race in the wind energy. Um, for the third and fifth question, the countries that consume more renewable energy are Turkey, United States, Chile, Spain, and Belgium. The ones that produces less renewable energy are Turkmenistan, Algeria, Lithuania, Poland, and Portugal. And finally, for the fourth question, we can see that approximately 80%, more or less, of the energy consumption in the world is from fossil fuels, 15% more or less here, from the renewable energy, and 5% there from nuclear energy.